Hi everyone! So the reason I am doing this video is because today is April 19th, Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Awareness Day. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my experience with congenital diaphragmatic hernia, or CDH as it is known. So basically, congenital diaphragmatic hernia is when your diaphragm doesn't fully form. So basically your diaphragm is right below your chest cavity. So it usually forms between weeks 7 to 10 of pregnancy. And in this case, my daughter's formed, but it had like a little hole in it. So basically what happens is all your digestive organs, such as your intestines, your liver, your stomach, everything goes up through the diaphragm and it goes onto your chest cavity. Basically giving no room to your lungs to fully develop. So that is what happened with my daughter. So with my daughter, when my 20-week ultrasound came, that's basically when, they do like a whole check of all her body and basically just, like a full 1 hour, an hour and a half ultrasound. So during this ultrasound, the doctor told me that her heart is basically tilted the opposite way than it normally should be. Basically, he said that, sometimes that happens, and once the baby is born, it goes back to its normal position. So he sent me to get a fetal echo, which is basically an ultrasound of just the heart. So when I did that, the doctor told me everything was perfect, and he also said that sometimes this does happen and basically the heart just goes back on its own. So, we left it at that. I was not worried anymore. I just thought it was okay. During week 38, I went to my ultrasound, and this was December 9th. I remember it clearly. December 9th, 2014. The nurse seemed very nervous as she was doing my ultrasound. And she asked me if I had gone to the doctor for the fetal echo. And I said yes. And I gave her the paper, She read it, she looked it over, and she just said, "Can you please come back Thursday," meaning Thursday, December 11th, 2014, because the doctor has to see you. Now, I knew there was definitely something wrong. So when I went back that day, the doctor just said, "Your daughter is not going to breathe when she's born. She's definitely going to be in NICU, and she's definitely going to need a surgery. So you better plan where you're going to give birth to her, because she's going to be there for a long time." Basically, just like that. So at this point, we didn't know it was congenital diaphragmatic hernia. We just simply thought it was a cyst. That's basically what the doctor told me, that it was a cyst attached to her lungs, and that if it was a small cyst, they would be able to remove it without touching the lungs. But if it was a big cyst, then they would have to remove it with part of the lung. So we would basically had to wait until she was born. So they decided to induce me the day of, like the 40-week, the day my actual due date, December 17th. The day before, they actually called me in, and they told me that, they thought about it, they talked with a few more doctors, and they decided that it was best to just do a C-section, just so the baby comes out easier and she's not as tired and she's not doing work, and, just in case she needed the surgery right away, they needed her to be stable. So, we said, okay. The next day, December 17th, 2014, I went into the hospital. They performed the C-section. Basically, the baby was born. She started to cry a little bit, but we didn't fully hear her cry, because as soon as she wanted to start crying, I guess that's when they cut the umbilical cord, and she basically just choked. So we didn't hear her cry. It was more like her choking. I didn't get to see her because of all the anesthesia and stuff. I was having a lot of side effects. My husband saw her. He took a picture of her. And then basically they just took her. So I didn't see her that day. she was born at 3:50 p.m. So that night, at around 8 o'clock at night, the doctor comes in and he tells me that, they did a lot of x-rays and, just to see what was happening. And she was basically diagnosed with a diaphragmatic hernia. So that's when the doctor explained everything to me, what it was, and. So basically, he said, we're going to have the surgery tomorrow, meaning the 18th, at 10 in the morning. So I had requested for me to go down to see her because I was in the third floor. She was in the second floor. I wanted to go see her, before the surgery. I hadn't seen my daughter. So the next day came and, they weren't coming for me. So I decided to go down on my own. And when I got there, the nurses told me that they had postponed the surgery for a few days after because she was still too small and, they wanted to see how she's developing and what's going on with her. So the surgery was actually 5 days after her birth. So December 22nd, that was the surgery. Everything went well, thank God. The surgery was about an hour 15 minutes. And then, the doctor pretty much said, the surgeon pretty much said everything went well. She handled the surgery like a warrior, which is basically what I was scared of. But then the doctor told us that basically, what was coming was the harder part for her to, like her recovery, basically. Because then we had to wait, since she basically had her stomach and all her organs up on her chest cavity. She wasn't eating since she was born. So they told us that, the recovery basically consisted of her being able to breathe on her own and then eventually eat without, basically throwing it all back. She had to keep it down and then, do her digestive, her things the right way. So we were like, okay, we didn't think of it as as difficult as what I thought would be the surgery. But, basically the other doctor told us that the neonatologist basically told us that some babies are there for 8 months, some babies are there for a year. And then they told us that about 40% of the children born with congenital diaphragmatic hernia come with other health issues besides congenital diaphragmatic hernia. So basically, they kept throwing things at us and things at us. And basically, it was just like a waiting game for us. So I actually have a picture here. This is when I held her right before her surgery. She was 5 days old. It was tough holding her with all those wires and seeing her with all those things on her face. And, it was pretty hard because having her inside of you for 9 months and then, having her with you everywhere inside of you and feeling her kick you and, stuff like that. And then just having her like that was pretty heartbreaking for me. So basically, she was in the hospital for only 17 days. She started eating. She was only on the ventilator when she was born, which is basically the machine that helps you breathe, since she wasn't doing it on her own. She was on it after the surgery as well. And then 2 days after the surgery, for Christmas, basically Christmas Eve, they started taking her off slowly as her saturation level kept going up, meaning she was breathing on her own. Her lungs didn't fully develop though, because as I mentioned before, her digestive organs were on top of her lungs, giving the lungs basically no space to develop. So she had about 2/3 of one lung and maybe like 1/3 of the other lung. So the doctor told us that since she was little, basically her lungs would still develop to where they had to, but maybe not as quick as, she would have if she was still inside of me. So she started eating right after her surgery, maybe like 3 or 4 days after. They needed to have her fully drink 2 ounces and digesting it well. She was doing it. She just wanted to eat. That's all she was doing, eating and eating, and digesting pretty well. So by New Year's Day, so January 1st, they told us that, everything was going well. She'll be out in like no time. And then January 2nd in the morning, they called me and they told me that, she's fully recovered and, they don't see why she has to stay in the hospital. So she left the hospital January 2nd. She was discharged. And then from there, basically, it was another waiting game for us because we didn't know what to expect. And it was pretty scary. But, it's very hard because once I started looking at the statistics, let's say, once you hear something, the first thing you do is you start Googling. So that's basically what I did. And it said that it's 1 in every 2,600. So I kept asking myself, why does that happen to me? Or why my daughter, why is she that 1 in 2,600? At that point, I didn't get it. I was asking God a million questions, like why her? Why us? She was my first baby and I was pretty young, so I considered myself healthy. And, there's a lot of things that I would think about. But then I understood it. And I understood that basically just as she was that 1 in 2,600, that's how unique she is. She's very unique. That showed me that, God saw her and God knows who she is. And she basically came and changed my life. She changed my husband's life. She basically came to unite my family. And she basically made a difference in our family, and especially me. I was basically, I stopped going to church for a while. That brought me back to church. I actually started going back to church the week before my due date. So that Sunday before, like that week that I had to go to the doctor, and I went back because it was my parents' anniversary. So my mom had invited my brother and my husband and all of us, so we could be there as they did, as they celebrated their anniversary. So once I went back, I remember clearly, they were praying for my parents, and then our pastor just saw me and he started praying for me. And at that point I thought, maybe it's because my mom probably told him I'm almost due, so he's just like, praying for me so everything during the birth goes okay and goes well. But he was praying basically for my baby. So now I understand why. I understand God was giving me all these signals, let's say, that he was there for me since the beginning. He was there for me and Aurelis from the beginning. He was basically in control of everything. And this just proves to me that it's never like I doubted it, but it just proves to us that God is always there. No matter how unfaithful you can be, he's always there. And basically, I understand he did this not because he wanted to, not because I did something bad. He wanted to do this because he wanted me back with him. He wanted me to come back to him and do as he pleases. And that's basically what I did. I'm trying to be the best mom that I can. I'm trying to be the best wife that I can. I'm trying to, do my best when it comes to him and ministries and church. And, so the reason why I wanted to do this video again was because, as I mentioned before, today, April 19th, is Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Awareness. Not a lot of people may not know what it is. I didn't. When, I heard about it, I had no idea what it is. So I just wanted to, let you know a little bit more about it. Let you know that whatever you're going through, it could be the same situation, it could be something different. You're not alone. There's always people going through the same thing as you. There's always people going through worse things than you. But the person who's always going to be there with you and not let you be or go through it by yourself is always God. He's always walking by your side. And you may not understand it at this time, but He's always there. I didn't understand it at that time. Like I said, I kept asking many questions, but I get it now. I totally understand why He did everything He did, and at the time He did it. I totally get it, and I thank Him for that. So you are not alone. God is always with you, and everything will be okay. My daughter is 5 years old now. She is as healthy as she can be, and I thank God for that. And now she's a big sister too, so everything is going well for us. Thank God. God has blessed us with 2 amazing little girls, and I can't ask for more. So yes, if you want to find more information about this, there is a website. I will leave it down in the description, and then you can donate if you would like for the research of it. And that's it. Thank you, guys. God bless you.